All right, welcome to another exciting tutorial provided to you by FRC Team 2168, the Aluminum Falcons. Today I'm going to show you how to set up your Eclipse IDE environment for Java development for FRC 2013 without the use of an official FRC Eclipse plugin. I'm going to be using the 2012 development environment as an example, so if there's any changes that might happen when the 2013 code is released, I'll update the video. Since this machine is not a development environment, it was never used for any first development before, I'm going to run through everything from start to finish, so no steps are going to be left out. And it's really a simple process. Unfortunately, you do need to install NetBeans once, but this only needs to be done by one person on your team or even in the first community, and I'll show you how to avoid installing NetBeans in the future. So the first thing we're going to do is install NetBeans. All right, and we're going to just download the latest NetBeans. First is probably going to specify exactly which version to download. We're going to download Java SE, and while that's downloading, you also need to install a JDK. So if you just Google search for Java JDK, you'll get to the Oracle website for Java SE downloads. And I'm going to download version 1.7, which is the latest version right now. Choose your platform. This is a Windows 32-bit machine, so I'm going to download that one. And lastly, I'm going to download Eclipse, which you guys probably already have. While that's downloading, I'm going to install NetBeans. Actually, you know what? Before we install this, let's install the JDK first, because I don't have any other Java runtime installed on my computer. So I'll install this one first. You don't need to, but I just want to. Okay, so that's done. Let's go ahead and install NetBeans. And while that's happening, I'm just going to move my Eclipse installation to somewhere more accessible than my downloads folder. So I'm going to just cut this, and I'm going to put it in my C directory. I don't recommend you installing it in your C directory. I'm just doing this for the video installation purposes. And I am going to extract it here. Now that we have NetBeans installed, the JDK installed, and the Eclipse installed, we're going to open up NetBeans. And the reason why we need NetBeans is because we need to use NetBeans in order to get the latest Sunspot FRC SDK. And First is notorious for packaging the SDK within the NetBeans plugin. And since they've done that for 2012, I'm assuming that they're going to do that for 2013. The easiest way in order to install a new plugin in NetBeans is to go to Tools, Plugins, and follow the first instructions here for finding the latest 2013 NetBeans plugin. Go to Settings, and we're going to add a new update configuration. And the 2012 URL, right here, it's http first.wpi.edu FRC Java NetBeans update updates.xml. I assume it's going to be the same for 2013. And we'll just call this FRC. And then automatically your available plugins number should increase. And if we just do a search for FRC, you'll have all these new FRC plugins. Before I do this, if you have previous FRC developments on your machine, go ahead and delete the old Sunspot SDK. It's going to be installed in your home directory. of your computer. In my case, it would be installed right here. Because this machine has never been used for FRC before, I don't have that. And that folder is all we really need from this plugin, but we're going to install anything anyway. And hit install. And again, you only need to do this once for the 2013 plugins, and this only needs to be done by one person. Once one person on the team or the community does this, and they get the Sunspot FRC SDK folder, you no longer need NetBeans anymore. You can delete it, you can remove it, and I'll show you how to avoid installing this later. Okay, so let's restart the IDE now. Okay, so now if we create a new project, we should now have all the FRC related stuff, and we do. So I'm just gonna create a new command-based robot project. I'm gonna call it my robot. Finish. Now, if I check the source, I can go into the main file. Okay, so if I go to Window, Outputs, and show the output, and I can go ahead and build this guy. Everything should work fine. And it does. All right, so let's go ahead and open up Eclipse, and I save mine to my C drive. So because we don't have the FRC plugins, we just can't go to File, New, and create a new FRC project because we don't have that. So, and we're not going to have the plugins for 2013, assuming. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use NetBeans in order to port over all of the first provided projects or templates. I'm going to show you one way to do that. If we go to back to NetBeans and we just click on the project head, if we go to export, you have this option to export to a zip file. And we're just going to do that. And I'm going to export this to my C drive just for convenience. And I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it exported from NetBeans. Okay. And this is my robot. Export that. So if we come into Java, and so if we go to Eclipse and we create a new project, a general Java project, I'll just call this my robot. You don't have to call it the same name, it doesn't matter. Before I do this, we need to set up the JDK in Eclipse. So if we go to Windows Preferences, go to Java, install JREs, go to Add, Standard VM, and then browse to where you installed the original JDK. And in my case, the default location is C drive, Program Files, Java, past it, and then your JDK. So it's going to load a bunch of jar files, hit finish, and make that your default. Okay, so now let's go to File, New Project, and use the the specific JRE that you have selected. I'll just call this my robot. It doesn't have to be the same name. And hit next. Okay, I'll ignore the Git stuff. Then I'll just leave this. It is. So now we have our default project in our Explorer view. Our source folder is empty. If we go to File Import, we have this option under General to import an archive file. And if we browse to where we exported from NetBeans, and click on that archive folder, we can then import that archive file to a current project in our workspace. And in this case, the only project I have open is my robot. And hit finish. And what it's going to do, it's going to now add that folder into your current workspace. You can go ahead and select all of these files, and then, well, before you do that, delete the source folder that came with the Eclipse project. And it's going to say, yep. So now grab all these guys and drag them to the head directory of your Eclipse project, and it's going to move them all up there. You can now delete that straggling folder that came with the archive. You can also delete NB projects, which is NetBeans projects folder. You don't need that. And you can also delete this Mac OS X folder if you have it. And then now we need to tell Eclipse to use this source folder as a source folder of this project. So if you go to build path, use as source folder. There you go. So now we have this project in Eclipse, which is an FRC project, but as we open it up, we're going to get all these errors because we don't have the libraries for FRC development. When we installed NetBeans, one of the things that it does is it adds the Sunspot FRC SDK to your home directory. Okay, so if we open this folder, we'll see under the library folder we have the Squawk devices jar, and we also have the classes.jar for the WPI library. And under serial images, we have the latest serial images. In this case, it's 43 for 2012. And that's that. So what we're going to do is in Eclipse, if we click on our project and we modify our build path, so we go to configure build path, go to libraries, and add external jars, we're going to navigate to that Sunspot FRC SDK folder, and going to go into the library folder. We're going to add the Squawk devices, and we're going to add the classes.jar files. We hit OK, and then magically all of our errors go away. But unfortunately, we have no way of building this code just yet. Remember, when you had the plugin, you could go to run as FRC build or FRC deploy, and you can then deploy your code or build your code. We don't have that yet, so we have to create those. And it's actually very simple. What the plugin does is it calls native Sunspot and to build files. So we're going to have to recreate those, and it's not hard at all. If we go into external configuration runs, which is this little run folder, what looks like a little suitcase, let's go to external tool configurations and create a new ant build file. So just hit new. We're going to search for the build file, and the build file is included in the project. So let's go to browse workspace, and you see your project will have this build XML file. I'll just open it up to show you what it's doing first before I get into this, so you understand what I'm doing here. So let's go to no. If you open up this build file, you can see all it does is it it tries to find the Sunspot FRC SDK folder, which is defined by this variable, and then it uses that build XML. You can change the default location of the Sunspot FRC SDK folder by changing this property here and then pointing it to the correct folder. So if we open up that folder, let's just go to, you'll see we have this build XML file. And if we open up this build XML file, that's what I want to do. We use Notepad. You'll see what this does. It imports a whole bunch of ant build files that come with the SDK folder, which are all stored in here. And these are all different ant builds macros that you can run. So what we're going to do is going back to Eclipse. If you go to that external tools configurations, we're going to create a new configuration. We're going to call this build. You can call it FRC build or whatever you want to. Browse the workspace and click on the build XML. Hit OK. Then when you go to targets, you're going to have all these XML files, and what this does is it looked through your build file just now and it actually imported all of the build functions that are included with the Sunspot SDK. If you click on sort targets, all you need to do is check one of these guys. It's called jar-app. You can leave help checked. I usually uncheck it because I don't want to see all that stuff. But I'll leave it for now so you can see why I uncheck it. And then we're going to check jar-app and hit apply. So now if we run this, we can see that our file is now building, and I can just show you, let's just create some problem. So let's just do system.out.println world, and I won't put the terminating semicolon, just show you that it's actually building. And once you run it for the first time, you'll now have this little thing there. And yes, we'll save changes and we'll run, and it should spit an error. And there it goes. And the error is that we don't have a terminating semicolon after this guy. And if we go ahead and build it again, that works. All right, so there's actually one problem here that I'm going to show you. If you go to this build file, you can see it's looking for the build file in this workspace location, whatever directory your workspace is, in the My Robot project. And so that makes this very specific to projects, and you would have to set this up every time. We can actually change this, and if you go to variables, look for the project name variable, hit OK. And so if you copy this guy and remove My Robot and paste it within there, you now have a more generic location. So every time you're in the current project, your current FRC project, it's going to look for the current build file in that project. We'll hit apply. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create a way to deploy. So we'll go back to external tool configurations, create a new project, go to your build file, browse the workspace, click on build. Let's change this project to a more generic version. So we'll go to project name, hit OK. Let's cut that out. Okay. In this case, since we're deploying, we need to provide the destination IP address. Remember, when you were in your FRC plugin, you can just type in your IP address from your team number, and we need to specify it directly. So the way we do that is in this arguments folder, we're going to type in hyphen capital D remote address, and then type in the IP address of your CREO. And in my case, it's 10.21.68.2. So go to targets, and for deploying, go to sort targets again. It's very important that you check these in the proper order. So for deploying, we're going to click on deploy. So it's in ABC order, so just go and find deploy, not hyphen deploy. Click on deploy before I do that, and then click on run and apply and close. And what you can do is if you click run it once first. So now we have these two guys. I want to rename this to deploy. Apply. And I'm going to deploy this code to my robot. First, I'm going to just make sure that I'm connected. I need to change my IP address. All right, I'm just make sure that I'm connected to my robot. And I am. So let's close NetBeans. I hate seeing it. Let's run this guy, and it's going to build connect to the CREO. All right, so it deployed code, and if I start my driver station, what this code should do is it should print hello world repeatedly in Teliop. So, okay. I need to set up my team number, 2168. Okay, we should get some robot code, and if I enable Teliop, we'll now see we're printing hello world. So we're printing the actual code that we just deployed in Eclipse. And we can see we didn't use any plugins. So if we check our, you can see if we check our plugins, what's already installed, we have no FRC plugins installed. So one of the other things that we can add here is if we go into let's add another build file. We're going to call this debug. We'll browse our workspace for the build file. Going to change to project name. Paste it here instead. Okay. And we still need to provide the remote address argument. And under targets, we're going to sort them in ABC order. Click on deploy. And then click on debug run. So and you can see the order that you click it in, what's going to happen is it's going to run the help, then it's going to run deploy, then it's going to run debug. Now if you clicked it in the opposite direction, debug, run, then deploy, you see that it's going to do this and it's not going to work. So you got to be careful that you're clicking in the right order. So we want to deploy first to the serial, and then we want to run debug. And then that's going to put you in debug mode and then follow the first debug instructions if you want to debug your code. I'm also going to do a tutorial on debugging on the serial in general using Eclipse in the next couple of days. So if we close, so now if we go to organize favorites, add, we can now add debug, and we now have these three guys in here. So we have build, deploy, and debug. Now what we were doing before was I was telling you one of the things that you don't have because we don't have an FRC plugin is you can't just go to other projects, FRC, and then load an example or a template. So what you can do is you can import those examples and templates from NetBeans. So if we go to File, New Product in NetBeans, I'll just do one. Let's go to Samples, and let's just do a PID demo sample. We'll call this PID, hit finish. It's going to create that PID project, then follow the procedures of exporting to zip file, and we'll save this in that previous folder that we created, which was exported from NetBeans, and we'll call this PID.zip, save, and export. Now if you go into Eclipse, create a new project, a new Java project, I'll PID demo, and I'll just create a different name just so it doesn't matter what the name is. And I hit finish, finish. Alright, so we got this guy. Go to File. No, we don't do that. Let's go to Import, Archive File. Gonna browse to our PID folder. Hit finish. Let's delete this source folder. Select all of these folders. And you can see because we didn't build this in NetBeans, it didn't create the other folders, right? So we'll delete this NetBeans projects folder because we don't need it. And then we're going to tell the Eclipse to use this as our new source folder. And what we need to do is we need to add the Sunspot FRC jars to this project. So you need to do this for every project that you add. Let's go to Add External Jars. Nope, Add External Jars. We want to add classes. And we want to add Squawk devices. Okay. And now when we open PID demo, we can click in here, go to this guy and deploy. And you can see, um, if I just scroll up to the top here, the build file that we're using is automatically the build file PID demo and not my robot, because we set the location variable to use the current project name. So it's always going to use the current project build file. Now here's why, even if I did have the FRC plugin, I would always use the external configuration method, because you can actually do a lot of really useful things by having direct access to the Sunspot and build files. Now, one of the reasons why I disable help is because every time you run build, help throws all this output garbage for no reason. So we can get rid of this by modifying our build file. So if we go to external configurations, we click on build, go to targets, let's uncheck help, hit apply. And so now I'll clear this guy. So now if we build, sorry. So now if we build, you'll see we no longer get the output produced by that help function. There's no echoes anymore, it's just a straight build. But one of the cool things is, let me just open up my workspace, I'll show you something. So my workspace, I made it in my C drive, right? I call it Robot Workspace. Let's open up PID demo. And you can see there's no doc folder right now. Here's why external configuration comes in handy, because you can add more things to your build. Let's say every time you build your code, you wanted to automatically create a Java doc. So if we go into edit our tools and click on build, go to targets, you could essentially run any one of these things that you wanted to. So well, we want help to be gone. It's supposed to be running jar app, but then after we run jar app, let's run Java doc and hit apply and hit run. So now we're going to be building PID demo, and then after our build is successful, we're going to create the Java doc automatically. And so now if I go to my PID demo, you'll see I have a doc folder now. And if I open a doc folder, I have a Java doc. I can open up the index and hit OK. And here is the Java doc for this class. So it becomes really helpful, and this is if you are actually creating a project that wasn't FRC, this is how you'd be using your AMP build files to automatically do tasks for you. So you can set it up so that you automatically do different things after you deploy, after you build, so on and so forth. But that's ultimately how you set up your Eclipse IDE to deploy and communicate with the robot in Java without having official FRC plugins. So what you can now do is you can now go to your Sunspot FRC SDK folder. You can zip this guy up and then send it to everyone on your team and tell them to install it in their home directory, and then run through the process to set up Eclipse without having to install NetBeans. And then in order to get everyone on your team to have these Eclipse projects, you can then export these Eclipse projects to zip files. You can upload them to GitHub or your choice of code collaboration in order to share these Java projects with everyone else on your development team. So that's it. I hope this tutorial was helpful in showing you how to set up your Eclipse environment for FRC development without having official FRC 2013 plugins. Kickoff is tomorrow, so I hope this helps you stay using Eclipse for 2013 without worrying about if First was going to release, without worrying if First is going to release 2013 plugins, or if they do. Last year they released it a couple of days after kickoff, so um, I hope this keeps you using it. So I hope this tutorial was successful in showing you how to set up your Eclipse IDE for um, developing an Eclipse without having official FRC plugins. And if this procedure changes for 2013, kickoff is tomorrow, so I'll know tomorrow if this procedure changes. I'll update this procedure such that it's completely up to date. And what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to install the 2013 SDK folder and then just make that available on our team website so that you don't have to download NetBeans. You can just take the SDK folder from uh, the zip file that we provide and go ahead and use it without having to install NetBeans. If you're on a Mac, the procedure is exactly the same. The Sunspot FRC SDK folder is operating system independent. There's nothing in here that relies on Windows. You can zip this folder and put it directly on a Mac and put it in the home directory of a Mac or Linux or any other operating system, and then set up your Eclipse environment to just point to the location of the classes.jar file and the location of the wpi-lib.jar file, and make sure that your build file in your project is calling the Sunspot home directory properly, and that the Sunspot home directory is actually where it thinks it is. And if you're going to save your Sunspot directory in a different location, you can use this property here, copy it out of the comments, paste it over here, and change the location of your Sunspot home directory so that it's using this variable to find it somewhere else. Or you can just go ahead and, instead of using the variable, just put in the complete location of the build file that's located in the Sunspot FRC directory. So that's it. I hope this tutorial helped you, and I hope it keeps you developing in Eclipse for 2013. Thank you for watching.